All right. So not last week, on Monday, okay, we had started this question 2.1. And remember, when we were looking at question 2.1, I had mentioned that question 2.1 basically deals with your cost price and selling price. Okay. Remember, I spoke about, these three formulas that you need to know off by heart. Most especially if you're dealing with cost price, selling price, okay, of a business, how a business makes its total income, how a business, right, calculates the profit that they make from the total expenses that the business has to the total income that the business basically makes. All right. We spoke about how we calculate the total income of a business. We said that it's the number of items that are sold multiplied by selling price. We spoke about how we calculate the total expenses of a business, right? Then we said that it's your fixed expenses, right, which comprise of your rent, paying the salary of your employees and things like that, right? As well as your variable expenses, right? And I also mentioned that when we're talking about your variable expenses, we are talking about, the expenses, right, of your business that change, okay, based on the production costs, right? So to get your variable expenses, I did say you take your number of items that you have produced multiplied by the cost price. Okay. Lastly, we spoke about how you calculate the profit that the business makes, because ultimately that is what we're trying to determine. We're trying to determine, what is the profit that your business is making. Okay. So to get the profit that a business is making, please, you take the total income minus the total expenses. Okay. Please just make sure that you add the total there to our formulas. Okay. I also mentioned that it's very important when it comes to your cost price, selling price, you need to be able to solve a simple linear or algebraic equation for an unknown. So you need to be practicing. You can even just go online and then you just look for your basic linear equations where you're just solving for an unknown. Please, actually, I'll even just give you just that. Okay, where you're just quickly practicing, right? Just using your simple, grade 8, grade 9 equations, just solving for an unknown, so that you just prepare your mind in thinking like that. Okay, so we've gone through all these questions. I think we stopped at question 2.1.3, and then I was just quickly going through question 2.1.4 all the way up to question 2.1.6. All right, I'm just going to quickly just write down these answers so that I can just be sure that we are all on the same page. Okay, so for question 2.1.4, question 2.1.4 says identify the break-even coordinates from the table above, right? So remember what I said, okay, when I was basically giving you guys, this whole explanation about what is the break-even point. Remember, I said, if we are talking about a break-even point, we are talking about a point, right, where the total income of a business is equal to your total expenses, right? If we are looking at it from a graph perspective. So, for example, if these two graphs, right, are just representing, for example, this graph is representing the income of a business, and then this graph is representing, the expenses of the business. All right. Okay. Remember, if you think back to those lessons that we did together of your cost price and selling price, remember, we just said that, this is just graphs that can be represented, obviously, on, a Cartesian plane, right? Where on your y-axis, you just have the cost. Okay. It can be the income, it can be the expenses. And then on the x-axis, okay, if you think back to what we've been doing together, right? That is just representing your items that you've either sold, okay, or produced. So now, if we said that the red is representing the income, okay, and then the green graph is representing the expenses, what I've just said now is that this point there, where the income and the expenses intersect each other, where they cut each other, that point there is called the break-even point. So at that point, let me show you why I'm saying that the income and expenses are equal. Let's say at that point, maybe when you read it off the graph, please, I'm going to show you something so that you get my point here. If I were to read off this point, I'm just going to write random values here. Maybe at that point, it's 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, right? 1,000. So this is 0. So maybe this is, maybe they say 5. Let's make it just a bit bigger. 1,000, 1,500, 1,000. I mean 2,000. Sorry, I'm going up in 500. 2,500. Do you see that at this point here? Do you see this point there? The income is 200. The expenses is 200. So this point there, right? This point there, where the income and the expenses are equal to each other, and in this case, they're equal to 2,000, we call it the break-even point. So the break-even point is just where your income and your expenses are equal to each other. So you should be able to, okay, determine the break-even point from just analyzing the graph, or you should be able to get your break-even point from just looking at what this table that is given to you. Sometimes you can just look from the table where you are given the number of items, right? Then they give you the total income that the business is making from the different items that are being sold, and the total expenses that the business has from the different items that are being produced. You should also be able to determine what the break-even point is, okay? Because all that you should be looking at, or should be looking for when you're looking at this table, is that at what point, when I look at this table, are or is the income and the expenses equal to each other? So do you see there in that column where we've sold 5 items, okay, the income and the expenses are equal to each other because they're equal to 1,350, right? So now if the question is asking us, Gemanj, identify the break-even coordinates, okay? So it wants the coordinates for that break-even point. So all that it wants you to basically give what is the x coordinates. So in other words, how many items, right, are sold, and then what is the cost, right? So basically, if I take it back to, this graph that I was using to help explain this concept, this is, right, this horizontal line, right? This is called our x-axis, and then this vertical line, that is called our y-axis, right? So if they say, for example, I'm just going to just give you another scenario here. I'm just going to add some values there. I'm just giving us random values so that you're able to put 2 and 2 together. Maybe I say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Okay, I'm just giving random values. Okay, and then I say, what are the coordinates of the break-even points in this situation, right? So what would you do? Basically, if you want to give me the coordinates, you first want to, in this order, you want to give me what is the x coordinate and what is the y coordinate. So in this case, the x coordinate is what? So you start from the x. You see, what is our x coordinate there? It's 8. And then what is our y coordinates? Do you see? We're on the y-axis. It's 2,000. Okay. So even in this case, even though we're not really given a graph that has been, these graphs that have been plotted on our Cartesian plane, but here, same thing here. the number of items is always sketched on the x-axis, and the income and the expenses, which is the cost, is always plotted on your y-axis. So in this case, the coordinates for the break-even point, right, would be what?
Ma'am, isn't it 1,350?
Okay, but remember, it has to be in the order x, y. So in this case, what would be the x?
It's the 1,350.
The 1,350 is the what? It's the y coordinates.
Yeah, ma'am, the X, I don't know.
What's the x? It's 5. Okay, so in this case, the x is the 5 items, and then the y is 1,000. Right. Am I making sense, Mara, with what I'm saying here?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay. B. Hence, determine the number of traditional belts the TD must sell to start making a profit. With this question, what did I say on Monday? Anyone?
I think we should look at the break-even point. After the break-even point is when she will start making the profit.
Okay, but what did I say specifically? Because you can't just say after the break-even point, that's when she'll start making a profit. They say determine the number of traditional belts that UTD must sell to start. For her to start, making a profit, how many traditional belts must she sell? What did I say when it comes to this type of a question? Can't remember, guys?
You can't remember, ma'am.
Okay, so basically what I said, if we look at this graph, and I said that, okay, the break-even point, how many bags are at the break-even point here in this graph that is represented or given here?
8.
So how many bags then, just looking at this graph, must I sell for me to start making a profit? From just looking at the graph.
10.
Do you see? So basically, the reason why Tepo is saying 10 is that, do you see that in this region, I'm starting to make a profit? And then do you see that in this region, I'm not working at a profit, I'm working at a loss? So if I am able to sell bags that fall within this region, I will be able to definitely make a profit. But now, what was the rule in that? You can't just say, I must sell 10 bags. I always said you need to move 1 unit up. So in this case, it's not going to be 10 bags. It's not a matter of me selling. I will definitely make a profit when I sell 10 bags. But then how many bags exactly will she start seeing a profit, right? She's not going to start seeing a profit at 10 bags. She'll start seeing a profit at 9 bags if we are focusing on this example that I'm giving here. So I always said, if you're given this question where you are being asked, how many bags, how many items must a person sell for them to start seeing a profit or whatever? From the break-even point, you always need to go 1 unit up. So because the break-even point is 8, that means that I need to go a unit up for me then to say that, okay, these are the number of items or bags that I need to sell to start making a profit. Okay, so it's not 10 bags, but it is 9 bags. Even though you're correct, when I sell 10 bags in this scenario, I will make a profit. But for me to definitely start seeing a profit, it will start happening. That profit will start showing, all right, when I sell 9 bags. So you always need to move a unit up. Okay, all right. So yeah. In this case now, going back to this question, we're not given a graph that we're analyzing, but we know what the break-even point is for the number of items. It's how many bags are at break-even point? I mean belts.
5 bags.
5 belts. Good. So for me to start now seeing a profit, how many belts must I sell then? Or must this person TD sell?
6 items.
That's it. Okay. So just please try to remember that. Okay. So TD must sell 6 belts. Okay. To start seeing a profit. All right. Okay, let's continue. Question 2.1.5. Complete the formula for for calculating the total expenses where N represents the number of traditional belts. Write your answer or formula in this form. Right. So what do you think is the formula Okay, what would you write as the formula for calculating total expenses? Please take it away. Anyone? Are you ready for the answer? Guys, are we pushing? We are playing around these days, as if we're being honest.
So decided to crash out early.
Guys, the formula for total expenses. Are you telling me that it's the first time that you see this? You can't approach this question. You can't give me the formula for total expenses. Or would you prefer that I just give you the answers and then we just keep it going?
Is it the one for fixed expenses plus variable expenses?
But you can't leave it at fixed expenses plus variable expenses because that says nothing. They want a serious formula that you can use and substitute to calculate total expenses. Yes, it is fixed expenses, you're correct, plus variable, but this says nothing. You can still redefine, you can still specify, because we're still talking about TD here. Total expenses is equal to fixed expenses plus variable expenses. The fixed expenses for TD's company is how much? The fixed expenses for TD's company is how much, guys?
900.
Okay, 900 plus the variable expenses. How do you calculate the variable expenses? Based on what you spoke about on Monday. Number of items, right? Multiplied by cost price. So it's going to be that 900 plus, they told us in this question, okay, that the N represents the number of traditional belts, right? So instead of writing number of items, I'm just going to write N multiplied by, what is the cost price of the traditional belts? We're told that the cost price is 90 Rand. Okay, so in actuality, right, if they want us to basically have, create a formula for the total expenses for TD's company, so the total expenses, right, will be equal to this 900 plus 90 times N. Okay, can even just say times N. Okay, so that's basically the formula that we're going to write here. Okay, final formula. Okay, it's going to be that 900 plus 90 times N. Okay, that's your final answer there. Question 2.1.6. Hence, determine the profit that TD will make from selling 100 belts. So for us to be able to calculate the profit that TD will make from selling of the 100 belts, all that we need to do is that we first need to calculate what is TD's total income, okay, for her business. And then what are her total expenses for the business if she's selling 100 belts. Okay, so I'm going to start with the total income, right, that she'll get. Okay, if she sells, I'm just going to say the 100. Remember, we're dealing with 100 belts. Okay, we want to determine what is the profit that she will make. Okay, so remember again, to get the total income, we said number of items produced, it's N, multiplied by the selling price. Okay, that's the formula that we use. It doesn't change. So in this case, how many items will be produced? 100 multiplied by, what is the selling price of one of these belts? So if you basically go back, remember we said that the selling price is 270. So you're going to take 270. So if you take 100, sorry guys, I'm making a mistake. It's not 100 Rand, it's 100 belts. Okay, 100 belts multiplied by 270. You'll see that the income that you'll make from selling 100 belts will be 27,000. Okay, that is basically the income that she will basically make. Okay, then same thing here. You also need to get the total expenses that she'll have from selling 100 belts. Okay, remember we've already, determined the equation for the total expenses. Remember we said it's that 900, that is the equation that you use, plus the 90 Rand multiplied by N. Okay, the bracket basically means that I am multiplying. Okay, so you're going to take that 900 plus that 90 multiplied by 100. Okay, I'm just substituting. So if you punch that into your calculator, remember, I just want us to always show the bits and pieces. It's going to be 900 plus 90 multiplied by 100. That basically gives us 9,000. Okay, therefore the total expenses will be 9,900. Okay, therefore now, okay, we've basically calculated the total income we will make, okay, from selling 100 belts. We've determined the total expenses that the business will have from selling 100 belts. Now, all that we need to do, we just need to calculate right now the profit. So remember, to get now the profit, which is what the question is asking us to do, you need to just take the total income and then you need to minus total expenses. Okay, so in this case, the total income, we said it was going to be 27,000 minus total expenses, 9,900. Okay, then you'll see that the profit that UTD makes is actually equal to 17,100. Okay, so that is basically the profit that UTD is going to make from selling how many belts? 100 belts. All right, and then that is it. Okay, so if you're able to just remember these things that we have spoken about here, you should be okay when it comes to cost price as well as selling price. Okay, also being able to do a break-even analysis. Okay, so please just make sure when it comes to what I've spoken about, you can even just go back to the previous lessons, okay, that I've done. I'll try to what's this, reshare the links, okay, for those lessons that we've done on your break-even analysis, cost price and selling price, and how you need to go about approaching those questions. Watch them again, okay, and see, okay, if you link it to what we've also done now this week, are you able to put 2 and 2 together? Okay, but you need to remember how we basically do a break-even analysis, how we calculate total income, total expenses, and ultimately the profit that a business will basically make. Right. Then, when we look at question 2.2, question 2.2, Gamanje, deals with interest calculations. Okay, so remember when we were looking at our interest calculations, we learned about compound interest. Okay, we learned about simple interest. We learned, okay, when we're talking about compound interest, we are talking about the fact that, okay, with compound interest, interest is calculated on the accumulated amount. Okay, and I gave you a nice example on Monday on what is meant by accumulated amount. And then when you're talking about simple interest, your interest is calculated on the principal amount that you've borrowed from the bank, that you've invested. Okay, so with compound interest, right, for example, you borrow 50 Rand. In the first year, they add 10 Rand interest. To calculate the interest in the second year, they're going to use that 510, not the 500. But with simple interest, you borrow 500 Rand. To calculate the interest that you'll pay in the first year, they'll use the 500. To calculate the interest that you'll pay in the second year, they'll use the 500. So interest is calculated on the principal amount that you've borrowed, on the initial amount that you've borrowed. Okay, you need to remember those lessons. Remember, we also looked at how we do your different calculations for compound interest. If it's compounded annually, if it's compounded half yearly, if it's compounded quarterly, if it's compounded monthly, okay, how are we supposed to approach those calculations? We've already discussed it. Then we've also discussed how you also do your simple interest calculations. Uguti, you just do it all in one step, nice and easy. We also spoke about the difference between interest rate and interest. If I'm talking about interest rate, I'm basically talking, do you see here? They're telling us that UTD received an order from the local church to produce 250 traditional belts. She borrowed 60,000 from the bank at an interest rate. So this is the interest rate, okay? It's 12%. So an interest rate is the percentage of interest that you are charged. But if I'm talking about interest, I'm basically saying, basically asking, how much extra did UTD pay, okay, for this loan? So for example, UTD initially borrowed 60,000 from the bank. Mara, if UTD pays back at the end of the loan period 70,000, that basically means that UTD paid an interest of how much? 10,000. So you need to know the difference between interest rate and interest. Let's answer this question. TD received an order from the local church to produce 250 traditional belts. She borrowed 60,000 from a local bank at an interest rate of 12% per annum compounded annually. Now, question 2.2.1. Determine the total amount that she will pay if she repays the loan in 1 year and 6 months. Okay, so in this question, they're saying that if UTD is borrowing 60,000 from a bank and she's paying an interest rate of 12% per year, compounded annually, what will be the total amount that UTD will pay at the end of this or financial or loan period? Okay, if obviously she has to pay it back in 1 year and 6 months. Now remember, when we are doing your compound interest calculations, I said that, okay, you have to first calculate what would be the compound interest that UTD will pay in the first year. That is what we're trying to first determine. So to get the compound interest that UTD will pay in the first year, remember what the formula, we said that it's always the principal amount multiplied by the interest rate multiplied by the term or the loan period. Okay, so when it comes to the loan period, especially with the your compound interest, right? You need to always ask yourself how often, for you to determine what is that in, or how many times you need to repeat this calculation. You need to ask yourself this question: how often are they adding this interest? Are they adding this interest once a year? Are they adding this interest per month? Are they adding this interest half yearly or quarterly? For you to be able to determine how many times we will repeat these calculations. In this situation, because they said that this interest, she's charged an interest rate of 12% per annum, compounded annually. That compounded annually basically means that the interest is added once a year. Right. So that basically means that if now this person has to pay back this loan in 1 year and 6 months, it basically means that this loan period, right, it needs to be in what? Years. Right. So we're going to first determine what will be the interest in the first year, and then what will be the interest in the half year. Okay, we need to break it up like that. All right, so let's get started. So the principal amount that she's borrowed is that 60,000 multiplied by the interest rate. It's 12 over 100. 12 over 100 is equal to 0.12. Remember, it always is 1. Always stays as 1 when you're doing your compound interest calculation, because you need to basically just ask yourself, okay, if the interest is added per year, then that just means that you're going to repeat the process for however many years that person basically took out the loan for. If this person took out the loan for 5 years, we're going to repeat these calculations 5 times. If this person took out this loan for 3 years, we're going to repeat it 3 times. But still, it will always be 1, 1, 1, 1, but we're just repeating this calculations 3 times. Okay, so in this case, if you take the 60,000 multiplied by 12 or 0.12 multiplied by 1, you'll basically see that the interest that UTD is charged, okay, in the first year is 7,200. This is a lot. Yeah, right? So 7,200. This is the compound interest that she will be charged in the first year. Now, again, we need to continue, okay? Now, before we continue, we need to get what is the accumulated, okay? Or maybe you can use a simpler term, total amount that she owes at the end of the first year. It'll be what? To get the total amount, you're going to take the principal amount of 60,000 plus that interest now that has been added. Okay? Then you'll see that the total amount now that she owes the bank at the end of the first year, it'll be that 67,200. You're not done. Now we want to calculate what is the compound interest that will be charged in the half year. Now, how did I get to the half year or the 6 months? Remember, we can't be now doing calculations in months, okay? Because why? In the question that we've been given, it told us that it's compounded annually. That means that the time period needs to be in years for everything, okay? So we can't be using months. It has to be in years. So because we now need to deal with the interest that is then charged in that 6 months, which is half of the year, okay? I got to half, I think you should know this. 1 year, all right, is equal to 12 months. I've just basically done that, okay? We have converted these 6 months into years, okay? So I basically take 6 months. How do I convert? Divided by what you have, 12 months, multiply by what you want, 1 year. Okay, obviously you can see that these are canceling. Okay, 6 divided by 12, that basically gives you a half. That's why I got to half a year. Okay, so 0.5 year or 1/2 year. Okay, so then the compound interest in half a year, it's going to be now the accumulated amount, okay, of 67,200 multiplied by the interest rate, 0.12, multiplied by, in this case, our n, okay, it has to be 0.5 in this case, right? Because it's that half year, right? And then from there, you should see that you get 4,032. Meaning that, what is now the total? Okay, what is the total that OTD will repay back to the bank, right? So therefore, the total that she will pay will be how much? Okay, it will be that 6,200, the amount that she starts the second year with, right? 6,200 plus 4,000
and 32.
and 32, yes. Okay, then when you punch that into your calculator, you should get 71,232. Right. So this is the total amount that UTD will owe the bank, okay, at the end of that 1 year and 6 months. Okay. All right, question 2.2.2. Hence, determine the amount of interest she will repay. How do we get the interest here? Babati, hence. Konja, what does the word hence mean? Hence.
I think for us to determine the amount of interest that she has to pay, she has to repay, we have to take the amount that she was supposed to pay. Then we are going to, it's either we are going to subtract money,
Mm-hmm.
then that money is the interest.
Okay, so tell me what to do. So to get the interest, guys, remember what I said, ne?
You're gonna take the answer, the 71,232. You're gonna take that amount, and then you're gonna minus it with Angie. Yeah, I think you're gonna minus it with the 60,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're not mistaken. And then?
And then you're gonna get your answer, which is gonna be, let me calculate me.
How much?
You're gonna get 11,232.
Thank you. Guys, please, ne? Okay, I'm gonna try and explain it again. If I'm saying to you, Latoya comes to me and says, okay, ma'am, can you borrow me 50 rand? And I say to her, sure, I'll give you 50 rand. But you need to bring back the 50 rand as 70 rand. So Latoya initially borrowed 50 rand. But I tell her that now, if she brings back my money, she needs to bring it back as 70 rand. Now, if I'm talking about the interest, I'm just saying, what is that additional amount that Ulatoya paid on top of the initial amount that I borrowed her? So to get the interest, it's always just the final amount that you would pay minus the principal amount. Okay, right? This is the amount that she paid me, but this is the amount that she borrowed from me. So the difference between the two, right, would be 20 rand. So I basically charged Ulator how much interest? An interest of 20 rand. Okay, please, you need to always think of this, your interest in this way. It's the total amount that you've paid at the end of the financial period minus the initial amount that you borrowed. Okay, that is basically how you get your interest. All right. Okay, cool. I think yeah, I think that's that when it comes to this. Please, you need to make sure that you are practicing these questions. Okay, we can't afford to lose these marks.
That is it, guys, and I'll see you guys on my next upload, Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. Bye, guys.